What up? Chicken Nuggets, Tyler here with Tarver Cards. Nope. What is it? Sports cards are dope. Sorry, still a new podcast. So I'm still trying to figure out the words. So I wanted to chat with you a little bit today about something that's kind of all over social media. It's in regards to a very large company within there. One of the main people at the company, his name's Grant. The company's called Backyard Breaks. They do breaks, live streams, repacks. They sell a ton of cards on whatnot, and they're at shows. They're very one of the top companies, I would assume, with revenue in the sports card hobby. And I'm not gonna show the clip, so if you haven't seen the clip by now, your algorithm's awesome. But if you haven't seen it, I'll give you a little recap. They were doing a live stream selling cards, and he made some just reprehensible comments about his hypothetical 6-year-old daughter, and then he kind of doubled down on it, and then I guess the clip got out beyond his like group and his community, and then the wider sports car community caught it and started talking about and discussing it. And as of right now, I'm filming this on Saturday, so it'll go live Monday. So as of right now, it's not been. I don't see like he's essentially put out an apology, but I just kind of want to give you some thoughts on it. And instead of focusing on like, yes, in my opinion, that's awful. That's crossing a line. I know, like, you can go out on the internet. The internet's a big place. You can go out to the internet and find things that match whatever style of humor, whatever style of degradation, anything you want. You can probably find a group or a community on the internet. As awful as it is, and as the majority of people would agree, that was pretty awful. I've seen people in other people's comments say like, "Oh, it was just a joke. Take a joke." But I want to talk more about how this kind of thing happens, and just based on some of my own experiences, what I've seen with companies, and especially with regards to schools. So like, I'll give you a story. So when I was several years ago, I was a principal of a 6th through 12th grade building, and once every month we had to go to the courthouse, and there was a judge, and myself. I was with my school, and then they had 3 or 4 other schools in our county that would be there, and principals and assistant principals would be there, and we'd sit over in like the jury area. We weren't the jury, but we'd sit in the jury area, and then students from our schools would come up, and they were there for either truancy, or sometimes they had done bomb threats, or brought a weapon to school, like any type of discipline action that was beyond what the school could or should handle. They would send here, and the judge would sit there, and sometimes they could send students off. Sometimes they could drug test them. Sometimes they drug test the parents, which that was always crazy. But you're sitting there, and I was just kind of there, in case a student from my school came up, they said something, and I'm like, that kid's lying. I'm thinking in my head that, and then the judge would turn to us and ask for any paperwork or documentation, and we hand it off. But one of the things that I saw there was I was a principal at like a medium sized school in Arkansas, and there's like one of the largest schools in our state. They were represented, and then like a larger school than us, and there's some smaller schools than us were there too. But with our school district, I was on that administrative team. Whenever we had students that say they put a threat in an email, or they brought drugs to school, or whatever it was that they did, we as a team helped decide what that punishment was, what we would allow at our school, and then what the parameters were for that. And we put that in our handbook, but then also when certain situations happen, we as a team meet, and then maybe we post to school board, hey, we need to expel this kid. They're not for the culture we want at our school. And when I would sit there at the courthouse and I hear these other schools, these students would come up and they would discuss what they did. A lot of times, especially at the bigger schools, they would have done something, and they'll say it, and then the other school's like, yeah, what we did is discipline because they did that bomb threat, or made that threat, or brought that to school. What we did was we sent them off to our alternative learning school for 2 months, or we put them out of school suspension for a week, or they said they're disciplined, and then they brought the kid back. And I would remember thinking in my head, I'm like, our team, if a kid did that at our school, they're done. Like, we would not put that kid around the other students at our school. What you're doing when you're in a position of authority at an organization, a school, a company, or within your own organization, when you're in a position of authority, you are setting the culture of that school by what you allow. Whatever you permit to happen, and whether it's a mistake, and like, all right, we're gonna let them come back and do this. whether they do it again or not, what you're saying to your community is, yeah, you can do that and there'll be a little consequences and you come back. Or you can say, hey, you do that, you're done. You're done. We don't allow that. You take a hard line with it. Your response says to your community, whether it's a school or a sports card company or a streaming platform or whatever it is, what you're doing by your actions is you're telling people we are either okay with this or we're okay with someone who does this coming back. Okay. Now, with this company, they've brought in a lot of money for themselves, but they've also brought in a lot of money for other companies. So, like, they've done it. They're one of, I think they may be the top person on Whatnot. They're one of the biggest sellers on Whatnot. I know they've done stuff with PSA, Fanatics. Like, I believe they get allocation. I don't know a ton. I've seen like their clips. I know who they are just because they're, every now and then one of their clips will pop up on my For You page. But I don't like watch their live streams, and I don't think I've ever bought anything from them because I know they're not really for me, which is nothing against like saying, oh, if you watch them, you're bad. I'm not saying that at all. Like, they might have great deals on stuff, or you might have won something once, or maybe it's an affordable break, or they have the product, whatever. Or maybe you like their style, like the way they joke around. That's just not for me. And I've known that. And so I've kind of stayed away from it. So whenever stuff like this came out, I wasn't surprised maybe as a person, because like I kind of figured like that's kind of their vibe, right? It's kind of like you push the envelope, you say something, you try to get a rise out of people. But I'll be honest, like, I like the response we've had from the card community that, like, we're not, as a card community, we're not cool with this. We're not cool with this. Now, everybody I see posting, like, nobody has the power to, like, cut them off, or like, we're done, or I'm getting you off Instagram or off Whatnot or whatever. We don't have the ability to do that. So we're not in those positions of authority. But I do like that we are trying to set a standard for what people that collect, people in that industry, do and what we're cool with. And so I like that people have been vocal about it. And again, there's people that think like, oh, if you don't post on your feed, you're not against it. Like, I'm making this video because I feel like this is a format where I can explain myself more than a 1-minute video and not just regurgitate what other people have said. And I think if you've ever seen any of my content, you could probably guess like, oh, this dude's probably not cool with that. Like, I would hope if you've seen more than 2 or 3 things I've done, you'd be like, yeah, he's probably not cool with that. So I would like that. But I personally, in situations like this, sometimes if I feel like I have a voice that can lend something different to it, I'll put like a short video out. I'm doing this because I can, and I can talk about like companies and how this stuff happens, that perspective. But like, I always try to take on the role of promoting people whose voices I respect and who have said something I agree with. So like, whenever all this was happening, I was actually traveling for work, so I was not looking at it while I was in cruise control driving. I have lane assist. I'm sorry, don't do that. Don't get on there. I did glance at it. I pulled over and I read a couple things. 2 people that I really like and respect. Kayla Collects. Check her out on Instagram. She's amazing. She wrote something really good. And so I reposted a couple of hers just to get that out there more. Just keep spreading it. Just hoping the algorithm pushes it out there. And then I don't think I've ever met her in person, but she seems great. From her Instagram, it's Candice Martino, I believe. I need to look it up, but she's great as well. She said some really good stuff, and I agree with everything they said. And so I just reposted their stuff, just try to promote and push that out there. But this is kind of like my chance to kind of talk about what we can do, because that's the thing in situations like this, when there's stuff that happens above your pay grade or above your control, like, it's like you feel helpless, right? Like, we've all seen, whether it's, influencers or creators or companies or politicians or celebrities or whoever it is, or sports teams, maybe they say or do something that we don't agree with, whether they're our favorite team or just another team or associated with something that we like this, like sports cards. It's like we want people to know, like, hey, that doesn't represent me. It's like feels like that's the best we can do. But then also we are so driven by how wrong it is. We want to do more, but it's like we feel helpless. And it's like, and it's interesting the way that manifests in people. I don't know if you guys noticed this, and I love your thoughts on it as well. But it's like, some people make a solid post. Some people repost it to get awareness, like, hey, this is awful, and this is my thoughts. Like, they're pushing it out there through their social media, and other people are reposting others. Other people are like going in and like calling out people who aren't saying, like calling out companies and people. Like I get like bring awareness to the company, like, hey, are you gonna do something? Like what is your response? Are you okay with this? How do you respond to this? And I think you get into murky waters whenever you start calling out like other creators. Like there's a couple creators that people are like, you haven't said anything. And then, their ties to certain companies, they're like, well, that's why you're not saying it. And they're assuming stuff based on that, which it might be true, it might not. But it's like you get into murky waters, but I understand the passion people have because it's like you don't know how to make a difference. So what you do is you start just kind of like shotgunning out and trying to go after everything you can, and everybody you perceive is not reacting the same way. I'll just go ahead and tell you my personal opinion. I think like I don't know any of these companies that they work with. If I did, after what they said, I'm good. I'm done. I'm cutting you off. I know it'd be a financial hit for those companies. But guess what? Whenever you take something like that out, something else fills that void. Like those people want that product. They're wanting to go in. Like you made money because people bought. You didn't go make money just because they watched it. You made money because they bought product. Well, guess what? When you reallocate that attention to that product, you're going you are going it's going to fill itself up. Yes, you might take a hit for a few months, maybe a year at the most, but other people come up. And I think, like I said at the beginning, this stuff happens. The culture for companies, apps, communities, it is set by what you allow. But what we're seeing with this, what makes this a different case, is because a lot of these companies have promoted these people. They have elevated their voice. And essentially, by elevating, and I get like, I've worked with companies before, like what they're doing by investing and putting money into promoting these people's voices or giving them a platform, making them pop to the front of the page or giving them money for giveaways for whatever. What you're doing is you're bringing attention. Yes, you're bringing attention to your app, but it's through the conduit of these people. You can tell a lot about a company and what they care about by who they promote and the people they do business with. I've done collabs with, like, I'd probably say like like 7 or 8 companies in the sports card space. Some were one offs, some were like ongoing things for a while. I've done a few collabs with Whatnot. Okay. They were great. I loved working with them the times we worked with. I don't know if on their end, I'm assuming like, cause I don't work with them continually. I don't have any contracts. We like, it kind of faded out. And I know I'm like, if you're taking sections like top, like big creators, and then you've got like, people that just consume, I'm like in the lower end of the middle. Like I'm very, very low on the totem pole. So I know that I was not one of their bigger creators. And so I understand them wanting to move money in others. And that's totally cool. Like I'm totally fine. I don't need, like, I literally just do those collabs to spend more money on my, collection, on my sports card collection. So all that money just goes back into it or paying off what I've already spent on it. So it's not like I need that to like pay my bills or anything. And so it doesn't bother me at all. And I always fear saying that because I don't want people to be like, oh, you're just mad because they stopped. Like, I don't care. Like, it's cool. Like, I have turned down a couple companies because I did not like the way they did business and the way they promoted who they were promoting, how they were doing stuff with. So, like, one of the companies I've worked with several times is I've worked with SGC. I think, and I made my first video about this, but I didn't do a very good job. I need to redo that video because I think I could have. I like watched it back. I was like, ugh, I can't even watch this. I don't even like myself. But I said in there, you can tell a lot about people by what companies they use, and you can tell even more about that company by who they promote and who they work with. Like SGC doesn't work with a ton of people. I think they're worth like 4 or 5, creators. Like I've worked with them before. I know Sports Cars Nonsense. They've got a big collaboration with them, but it says a lot about that company and who they select to work with them. And so like PSA, same thing. You can see what company and what they're about by who they collaborate with. And so it's like these companies, by allowing people to do stuff and allowing people to come in, it's just you're showing who you are and what you care about. And sometimes that's just making money. I get that. Companies have to make money or they can't operate. But I think Tyler's opinion on this, as a company, and even on a much lower scale, as a creator, because I don't run a sports card company. I do have social media accounts. I have a YouTube channel. I have Instagram. I am responsible for protecting my community. When you go to school and you get your master's to be an administrator at a school, you think like, if I ask people like, what do you think the most important part of an administrator's job is, the number one thing on the top of the list when you become an administrator, a lot of people would say like academics or, student involvement, classroom management, working with teachers. A lot of people would say that. That's not true. The number one, the number one responsibility of an administrator at a school is the safety of the people at their school, the students, the teachers. The safety of those people is number one above academics, above anything else. It's supposed to be number one. Whenever you have a company, the safety of the people that go to your app or use your product or whatever you're doing, their safety is number one. Now I know that's different with certain like SGC, like a grading company, like okay, the safety of what? Like don't hurt yourself when you open up the package, you can get a paper cut. That's not what I mean. But like if you have an app or a company where people are, on there like live stream apps, if they go on there and they're using hateful rhetoric, racist rhetoric, sexist rhetoric, if they're talking in a certain way and you're elevating them, there are people that come into that, and what they're doing, it empowers either the thoughts they had that those people have shared, either as a joke or whatever. It's essentially saying, hey, you act like this, we'll give you a platform, or we will elevate you, or this is what we want people to look like who use our product. So when stuff like this happens, especially at a level where not just what they allow, but what they promote, you're essentially saying to your audience, we want, not just we're okay with this, we want this. And like for me personally, like again, I don't have like an app or live streaming thing like that. However, I do post a lot of videos, like more videos anybody wants to watch onto social media. And I am responsible for that community. So for instance, and what does that look like for us, Chris? Like you want to know what you can do? You can help protect your community. And what does that look like when you post something? If I post a video and again, I'm okay with criticism. Like somebody comes in, like I disagree with this, or I don't like this, or or you talk like this. They can make fun of me. That's fine. But and from what I've seen, there is a difference between like disagreement or criticism and hateful, targeted comments. Where I've had comments in the past where they've said something racist, or they've said something vile, or they've made like a sexual comment or degrading comment towards women. Like, and I don't have a lot of people in my videos besides just me or my kids might bounce in, or if I'm at a show or something. But whenever I see that, that is a difference, and that's not something I allow. So when I see that, I go in, I click the three dots, and I block that person. I'm good. You've shown me who you are and what you bring to the table. And it's not like, again, I don't do that with like, you can go and find my videos. There's people make fun of me all the time. But if you come in and you say something that is a tone change, or it's this like, I don't know, abhorrent like I'm done. I don't need that. Like I'm good, and I'm going to protect my community and the people that read my comments. I try to make videos to where like a parent who doesn't know anything about sports cards has got a 12-year-old kid that is into sports cards and they love cards, but as a parent, I don't want them just watching anything or seeing all this negative. Like I wouldn't want them watching Backyard Break stream. Like I would never let my kids watch that. So I try to make content that I would feel comfortable letting my kids watch. Okay, I'm not always perfect, but I try my best to do that. And that goes for when they click on it and they see the comments underneath, I want to help make that a safe place for people to go as well. And I try to have a zero tolerance for that. Again, I don't have as much money on the line. Again, I get that it's different. I get it, it's a business, so there's a lot of factors that play into it. But what you allow, what you allow becomes your culture. And that's just, I don't know if it's a warning or it's just it's just something companies I think need to know, because a lot of times companies are like, oh, they got a big audience or they bring in a lot of money. Cool, that helps us on this end, this end, this end. But what you're doing is you're telling people like, this is who we down with. This is who we rock with. These are our friends, right? And then eventually over time, that kind of becomes who you are, right? There's that famous saying, and I do this whenever I do talks with leaders at education stuff, or I speak with students. You become the median of the 5 people you spend the most time with. And now I think in the social media age, you become the median of the 5 people you consume the most content from. So those people that are sitting in backyard breaks, like live streams for hours every day, like it's going to start seeping into what they're cool with and what they think is okay. And I think personally from that video, like, yes, he made that awful comment at the beginning. And then you think like, well, it's just a comment. Like he just made one comment, made a mistake. I think for me personally, like if I was analyzing this as an administrator and like looking at a student's actions, Again, I've never watched their live streams. Like, we're just judging off of one video. I'll tell you from that video what made me feel confident enough to make this about kind of what they're okay with. One, he said that without hesitation on a live stream. Like that's public. And I get you got to feel the air, but you feel in the air with what's going through your mind, right? So he said it. I doubt that's the first time he said something like that because there was no hesitation, no apology. And then someone in the comments even said, hey, I don't think you should say that. He read that and then doubled down and said something else. Someone called out, hey, man, I don't know if that's okay to say. He had no hesitation and rolled in, doubled down, said, you know what? I'm going to toss my chips in again. I just feel like that shows a lot about what, like, I've not done those breaks, but I'd be surprised if he hadn't made comments like that about women or, I don't know, kids or whatever. But I feel like this says a lot about what they're doing on there. So I personally not charging these companies. I'm not like, I understand these companies, they run their business, they do their thing, but what you allow and what you promote, it becomes who you are and who you attract and who you tell your people, you say like, hey, we're cool with this. We rock with this. So what can we do? Okay. So I always think, again, I said earlier, like we always feel like so energized, like I want to help, I want to do something. And sometimes promoting, sometimes it's going after, sometimes comments. I don't know. I wrote down a couple things that you could do. The first one is don't support people whose voice you don't approve of. I get like, oh, they did a giveaway once and they gave me something, or I could win something. The only was sometimes it does mean a hit on you as an individual or as a company, but don't support those whose voice you don't agree with, like whose voice stands against. You don't have to agree with everybody. Like there's people that I buy stuff from, things that I've done, but it's like they might have a difference of opinion. But again, there's a difference of opinion, and then there's the kind of person you are and what you're putting out there. And for different people, that's a different line. But if you're not okay with it, don't put your money there. Some of you guys, you're like, oh, I'll never buy anything from Backyard. I've never bought something, to my knowledge, from Backyard Breaks. I think I've bought into like 3 different breaks in my life, and I don't think any of them were them. If it was, I didn't enjoy it because I don't do breaks because I've always lost money. And so, but there are people that do great breaks, blah, blah, blah. I'm not being mean against breakers. You know, it is a great way for people to buy in if it's done right. So you've got to figure out what that line is for you. Some of you might be Backyard Breaks, some it might be Whatnot, some it might be PSA, some it might be Fanatics. I don't know, whoever it is that they're affiliated with, and that line for you and how connected you are and what you're okay with. Some people might be totally cool with Backyard Breaks and they go back in. That's your personal line, and you're allowed to follow whoever. But if you want to make a difference, don't put your money, your views, or your support behind the individuals or the companies, depending on how you feel about it. So that's one thing you can do. And the second thing, and I know the phrase that gets thrown around is like cancel culture, cancel culture. I remember back several years ago, what was it? Logan Paul, he made that video, he was doing vlogs. And I remember seeing the video before it kind of like went off and got crazy about the Japan forest thing. And don't go Google it if it's inappropriate, but put it out there. He didn't see anything wrong with it. And at the time, everything he was doing was being successful. So he just thought, well, everything I'm doing has been a good choice so far. I'm going to keep going. And then there was a lot of blowback from it. And we thought like, oh, he's done. His career's over. And dude's doing WWE stuff and fighting, Floyd Mayweather. And he's about to fight his brother in a boxing. Like, dude's he's making more money he's ever made. And I think that the phrase cancel culture gets thrown around a lot. We're in a day and age. If we were still living where there were 20 TV channels and those producers chose who got on TV and who got a voice and who got a microphone, you could still have cancel culture. You could be like, everybody's mad, and then they fire them, they're done. How many news people got fired and then they go start their own channel on YouTube or X or, whatever platform they want? Like, we live in an age now where anybody can have a microphone or voice, whatever. So nobody really gets canceled. They just get shifted around, and then their audience gets to choose whether they stay afloat in that medium or if they have to go out and get a job doing something else because they allow their money and their marketing dollars to go towards it. So there are so many ways to make money now. It's not being able to speak out. It's not cancel culture. You're just saying like, I'm not okay with this. And depending on your level of influence, you can encourage others not to, or you can just not do it yourself. And I think that's what it comes down to. We as individuals, we have to figure out what are we okay with and then share that with your audience. Me personally, I don't know. I don't think I have any influence over anybody in the industry, but I just wanted to put it out there. I'm not cool with this. I think that was not a one-off comment. I think that's a reflection of who they are, and not saying people can't get better. I hope he does get better. I hope he realizes what he did and corrects it and gets better. I hope that happens for him. But I think I'm good. It was never really my style before, and I think I'm okay now, and I don't think I need that in my life. So I'm out on him, and I don't know. I think that, with these companies, it's going to be interesting to see. And depending on how they react, honestly, that does impact how cool I am with them. You know what I mean? Like, I'm not saying like, oh, I'll never work with them again, or I might not buy anything off their platform. Like, I might. I don't know. Depending on what not handles this, I might be like, oh, that says a lot about you, either good or bad. And then I, from there, will choose my level of involvement. You know what I mean? Like, and again, they've already, we don't work together consistently, so they've probably already chosen their level. Like, no, we're good, bro. We don't need you on the coast. Fine. But like, based on who, and obviously I'm not who they want, because I don't project what they want, whether it's that style or that amount of revenue, because I don't do whatnot shows hardly ever. And so maybe they leaned into what they wanted, which is fine. Like, I'm totally okay with it. And I think that you can only control with what's in your sphere. And so I'm interested to see how they're going to react. But if they're okay with it, or if they allow this type of rhetoric to happen within their platform, it would say a lot. It would say a lot about the company. So hopefully they have standards that, I personally connect with. And I feel like if I've talked too long, I apologize. I really wanted to kind of, I don't know, this podcast, like, I didn't want to go on and be like, oh, I'm trying to get views, because that's always the fear, right? If you make a video about this, like, it's this line of like, I'm saying I'm against it, but also it's like, oh, you're just, trying to get views. I don't have any like pretenses this is going to hit a bunch of views. It's probably going to stay regular with most of my views, which is not a ton for longer YouTube videos or podcasts, but like, that's fine. One of the reasons I wanted to start this podcast is because there's like times like this where I have thoughts I kind of want to process with you guys and get your thoughts and opinions on, like, where do you stand? What do you think? What are you cool with it? Like, do you draw the line with this company, with Grant and Backyard Breaks, or do you draw the line above that? Any company they work with or did work with, are you done with them? Like, where's your line? And I don't want you to attack anybody who feels different, because we all have different levels of where we feel about that, and how much conviction we have towards the companies that work with these types of people. But I would love your thoughts on it. And I like that now that honestly, I'm really excited to do this podcast, because I do like the opportunity to process this. And I'm going to give you their exact handles real quick, because I want you to go follow and check out what they said. Because if you want to know, like, what do you think, Tyler? Like, I think exactly what they said. So Kayla.collects, I've actually met her, been around her a couple times. We actually played in the Culture Collision basketball game a couple years ago. And I am almost 40 and I couldn't slow down. I almost ran her over, but I didn't. Caught her. I was like, hey, I'm sorry. And she was like, I was like, oh my gosh, I almost knocked her out. I didn't know. Kayla was great. She's a wonderful young lady. And so Kayla.collects, give her a follow, check her out. The post she made about this is all purple background. So check that out. And then it's Candace, Candace Martino TV. Check her out. She also had a good one. Her post is with a Navy background, but they were both fantastic. Go check them out, promote them, elevate them. If you elevate anybody, if you agree, which I certainly do. So thank you guys so much for watching. I love your thoughts. Also, how long was this thing? Too long. So sorry. I just want to process all that with you guys. And if I said anything wrong, I apologize. That's on me, fam. I think probably what you think, because if you watch this long, we're probably on the same vibe. We vibe, you know what I'm saying? So y'all be good, have fun, and be kind. Be kind, be good, and never stop collecting. Sports Cars Dope Podcast, and so are you. Like